Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stigma Free Societies slash Surrey School District. Today, we're broadcasting on all three channels, the Stigma Free Society's Facebook Live, as well as their YouTube Live, as well as the Surrey School District's YouTube channel. We're so happy to be here. I'm Daniel Toe. I'm the district principal in the Surrey School District. My responsibilities are mental health and wellness, programs for at-risk and vulnerable youth, and summer learning. And I just want to welcome you to this bi-weekly podcast or broadcast or vlog, whatever you like to call it, that we do in partnership with the Stigma Free Society. And today we are so glad to have Jen Lowry and Melissa Lee from Foundry Surrey. I'll let them talk about themselves. But before we get into what our discussion is today, which will be about the Foundry Surrey, and I think this is great information for our community. We've been looking in the city of Surrey and as a district with all of our partners somewhere and some place for youth to really just be able to seek mental health supports. And Foundry is that. I'm going to let Melissa and Jen talk about that. But please remember, even though I'm broadcasting for the Stigma Free Society in conjunction with the Surrey School District, I still work for the Surrey School District. So everything I'm going to say is going to be consistent with the vision of the school district and the work that we do. I love the Surrey School District. I think we do a lot of great work in supporting at-risk and vulnerable youth as well as mental health services. So I'm very proud to be here on behalf of the district on the Stigma Free channel. And thank you, Stigma Free, for being our partner. Please remember to look at their Stigma Free toolkit on their website. And to all those who are watching now, I know that some are tuning in during lunch, or if you're watching this after, to reset the topic, we are talking about Foundry Surrey. We have Jen Lowry, manager of Foundry Surrey, and Melissa Lee, who's, I think, a program coordinator. Your title is for Foundry Surrey. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I'm going to pull up their PowerPoint, and so we can all see it. And then I'll just let them go at it, and we'll just have a conversation about Foundry Surrey. Go right ahead.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Daniel. My name is Jen Lowry. I work for PCRS, Pacific Community Resources Society, which is the host agency bringing the Foundry to Surrey. And my role is manager of Foundry Surrey. And Melissa?
Thanks, Jen. My name is Melissa Lee, and I am the program coordinator for Foundry Surrey, working with Jen. We're a small team, also employed by Pacific Community Resources Society.
So let's go at it. And for our viewers, I'm seeing viewers pop up now during lunch. This is Lunch and Learn, obviously. You can post comments. I will see the comments and I can ask questions. If you have questions about Foundry Surrey, you can ask Melissa or Jen, and I will read the comments to them, and they might actually be able to see them as well. So go right at it. Go for it. Let's hear about the Foundry Surrey and how it's going to support the community and especially youth in terms of mental health and wellness.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Daniel. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your lunchtime with us. Kind of the intention of us being here today is we just kind of wanted to have a conversation about Foundry Surrey to kind of educate, inform, and also engage the community and let folks know where we're at today. So we're going to do a little bit of a brief presentation. Daniel's going to ask us some questions as we go. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we will do our best to address those as we go. So Melissa, do you want to get us going? Awesome. So I just think it's kind of really important. I'm going to give a broad overview of the Foundry because we are part of a provincial network. So the Foundry right now is already up and running in 11 communities. And the third phase is coming to 8 new communities. And so we are part of a network. The network is by Foundry Central Office. And this is funded and supported by the provincial government, the Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions, and it's part of their Pathway to Hope. So as I mentioned, the Foundry is going across the province, ideally, and the end goal and result is to have a Foundry in all communities. And the intention of the Foundry, their vision is to transform how young people access health and social services throughout the province. So that is a really big vision. It's a fabulous vision, and I believe it's an obtainable vision. So that's leading the work across the province. So this just kind of highlights where the 11 open sites are and where they're running. And then it also talks about, and they kind of come in phases. The Foundry calls it phase. So Surrey is part of the phase 3. So what that means is they go to a host agency in Surrey. PCRS is the host agency, and then the job and the work is to really gather community together, which is what we're doing to bring the Foundry to Surrey and really focus on the unique and diverse needs of each community. And as we know in Surrey, it's a fabulously unique and diverse community. So making sure that that gets highlighted.
Can I ask a question about the slide? So just it's a little bit smaller for our viewers. I don't know what screen they're watching it on. So the orange is that phase 3 and the green is active? Is that what that is right now? Or
the green, yes. The
Okay.
green is the ones that are actively open. The orange are the ones coming soon. Since this slide was done, actually
Yeah.
Terrace is now open and operating,
Okay.
as is Richmond.
And this is sort of a side question. You might be answering it later, but I'm going to ask because the slide is up. What is the uptake in these communities? Like, obviously, it's growing, so definitely there's a modicum of success. But in the ones that are just opening now, especially during COVID, like such as Terrace, do you happen to know, or maybe not, what the uptake is? Like, is it a place that people utilize right now?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
generally, what we're finding is that when the doors are open, folks are ready for the doors to be open, and as soon as the doors are open, that
Right.
youth and families are accessing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So good. Okay,
Okay.
awesome. Sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
No,
please.
it's great. Thanks,
Yeah.
Daniel. So just really, what is the Foundry? Right? I work in the Foundry. I make an assumption that everyone understands what the Foundry is, and then I speak to people and they're like, what is that? And so really what the Foundry is, it is a place and community where youth and families can access to get their needs met. It supports young people ages 12 to 24. And there's numerous different services and resources available within Foundry centers. I just really want to highlight, you can access Foundry in 3 different ways at the moment. So one is the actual centers, and that's what we are developing for Surrey, and that's a center. If you don't have a center in your community, you can also access through the app. They have virtual services, and Melissa's going to explain that a little bit more because it's a resource that is available to you across the province today, whether you have a Foundry center or not. And then also the website, and we will share this information with you. The website is fabulous for resources for community service providers, as well as for family members and young people, because we know that everyone goes on their journey at their own times and their own pace. And so sometimes families want to access before the youth is able to access. So these are the 3 different ways you can access the Foundry at this time.
One thing I like is that if you just keep this picture up, all the foundries, I believe, look the same, right? So when people, even one strength of this is when people go from community to community and they need services, it's a recognizable place. It's like going to Home Depot, like you know where the aisles are, you know where the screwdrivers are, and it's similar to that, right? Like it's right. And do you feel that just statistically, has that brought a level of comfort to those who do travel throughout BC and need the services?
Very much so. And the other part of that, Daniel, and just to expand on that too, Foundry has colors, and this is all based on feedback from the youth. So the Foundry
Awesome.
says, and it's true, it is services for youth by youth. So everything is informed, and Melissa, again, will speak a little bit more about this, really informed by communities. And so, yes, they all have a kind of unique colors, but each community is going to be able to add what's representative for their community there so that people feel welcomed.
I love it. I love that youth is 12 to 24,
Yeah.
because one worry also is from those we've spoken to from agedout.com. We've had them present before as well. And their worry is when kids age out age 19, there's no more services. And, and we, as we know, 90% of kids who age out into poverty. And they can't seek mental health and wellness services. So having a 12 to 24 is definitely a real support for those who do age out of care.
Very much so. We know that a lot of resources end at 19 for some young people. And we also know that those are really challenging years, especially around the mental wellness piece. And so this really transitions really nicely, and that's the intention.
Awesome. I keep interrupting. Please keep presenting. Sorry.
No, keep going.
So
okay. So the core services. So the Foundry, again, is a provincial network, and each Foundry has core services, and they have the same 5 core services in all Foundries. So whether you're in Abbotsford or Williams Lake or Comox, the five core services exist. And this is what's unique about the Foundry, is that all of these services exists as you walk in. So there's the physical health, which is included in sexual health, trans health, primary care through the physical health. There's also mental health supports that can be one-on-one counseling with clinicians. That can also be group work. That can look many different ways. Substance use supports, again, one-on-one supports, group supports. Peer support is a huge part of the Foundry. And so that peer support includes navigators, and the peer support is from youth and young people as well as families. And caregivers providing peer support, and then social services. And the social services, that is such a massive area that will get filled up in Surrey according to what our needs for our community are. So really, we don't want to duplicate any services in the Foundry Surrey. What we're going to do, and this is some of the work that's been done, is we're looking for gaps in services out there and trying to fill some of that. So it could be housing, it could be employment, it could be education. It can look like whatever we need it to look to support the needs of the community.
That's awesome. And I'm glad that physical health is included. A lot of times with some services, it's just mental health, but then we're like, it's so intertwined, mental health, right, to physical health. And as we know, like, when kids have mental health issues, sometimes they come across as stomach aches or earaches or headaches or migraines and physical ailments. And to have that element there, I think is a real strength of Foundry, as a holistic service, one-stop shop, as opposed to we only do this, right?
Yeah.
So,
and that's the idea. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Daniel. Is like, sometimes youth may come in and they might come in for a vaccination, or they might come in because they need some antibiotics. As the conversation starts to happen with their primary care physician, sometimes they'll end up talking about not being able to sleep, lacking motivation to kind of get up in the morning and go to school. And what can happen is we don't want young people to have to tell their story over and over again. That's one thing we hear, which is a barrier to accessing services. So having everything in one place allows that primary care physician or a nurse practitioner or an RN to say, that sounds like there might be something else there. Yeah. And walking them over and doing that handoff with somebody who, and it might be a mental health support, it could be a group, and so that you don't have to go elsewhere. Awesome. And that's the idea. The other thing about the Foundry, what we know with young people and working with young people, and what you know really well, is it's really immediate. The needs become immediate. Yes. And what is a big deal today kind of might disappear in the next week, and then we think it's gone. It's not. It's just underlying. And so being able every day to have accessible times for young people and families outside of 9 to 5, and also keeping those walk-in hours available throughout the week, so that you don't have to wait 3 weeks for an appointment.
Yeah, it's great for schools as well. Like, we will have a place to refer to that's going to be open after school, because unfortunately, a lot of the services that we offer, send kids to now, they're open when school's open, and then they're closed when school's closed, right? So it becomes a little bit more difficult. I know PCRS runs a great new youth center and resource center, and there's one in Wally as well that are open after school as well. So that's a really good flow as well. But continue to present, and I keep interrupting, but it's so interesting, and I'm part of some of the planning, and I still find it so interesting and invigorating that this is going to be offered in Surrey, the city of Surrey, which desperately
it's so needed, and we're And I'll say one more thing before I'm going to pass it over to Melissa, and this is what I think is really important. We know that there's limited mental health resources. And so what happens is there's criteria to be able to access at some time. And the idea of the Foundry is that the youth and the young person is able to determine whether they have a mental health need that they need to access. So it is for the person who might be in first year university and all of a sudden they're getting overwhelmed. It might be anxiety, it might not be, but they're not functioning how they had typically functioned, and they're unsure of what they need. They might not be able to access traditional or typical mental health supports in community. They can access the Foundry because they are talking about their needs, and the intervention can happen at any time in many different ways. And it can be a simple intervention of just walking in the door and connecting with a peer navigator and joining a group. It could be actually seeing a clinician one-on-one, but it's meeting the needs of the youth as defined by the youth. So I think that's really important. It's a little bit different than how some of the other services look right now.
before Melissa speaks, and as you have this slide up, and I noticed you're both wearing orange shirts. I have boxes mine outside. I forgot to wear it today in the clothes I present in, but we are, in Surrey on the lands of the Kwantlen Semiahmoo Coast Salish and Kwantlen First Nations, and you serve that community here, and you serve I think, I can't remember I think it's not Musqueam out in Vancouver, right? And just, do we have other, I'm sure there are, but maybe you can tell us a little bit about the Aboriginal Indigenous supports that are in Foundry as well, or that will be in Foundry. I know that elders are involved in some of our meetings, and the Star Elders and those folks, but maybe you can just speak briefly on that, because we honor the lands that we're on, and we're so glad to be working, learning, and playing here, as I know you are as well. I can see by your orange shirts, but especially during Truth and Reconciliation Week, maybe speaking a little bit about the Indigenous supports that are available through Foundry.
Yeah, it's just very important. As part of Foundry and Central Office, there is Indigenous Wellness, and there's a Director of Indigenous Wellness who helps inform and guide. And then for the community of Surrey, we want to be inclusive, and we want to have representation of all members of our community, and that includes the Indigenous community. I think 13% of the Indigenous population in Surrey identifies as Indigenous. So our partners, we're partnered with Métis Nation BC. We've invited some of the nonprofit Indigenous agencies to join as well. We also have First Nations Health Authority, and we are open to being completely inclusive and making sure we have representation as well. And Melissa's going to speak more to this around our different leadership tables to make sure that there is a voice in the partnership, and it's a valued true voice.
Awesome.
That's right.
Go ahead, Melissa. I won't interrupt you as much as I interrupt you. We do actually have a comment in the side. I'm not sure if Jen, while Melissa's speaking, you want to take a look at it, but you're probably better suited to answer that question. Go ahead.
No, thanks, Daniel. All great questions and comments. So Foundry has given us a model, given all the lead agencies a model to bring the Foundry to their communities. And so we've translated that to Surrey and what that looks like in the community of Surrey. And so this is what you're seeing right now, and that's what that looks like. So on the left side, you're seeing PCRS's structure, and you see Jen and myself there as the lead agency to bring the Foundry to Surrey. And then on the right side is what makes the Foundry Surrey right now, which are our 4 leadership tables. As you know, Daniel, you sit as part of our leadership, and you're an awesome partner and cheerleader. So we have our executive leadership table, and those are our barrier busters. And those are the people who are able to influence change at a high level, at a systemic level. And so they are providing the overarching governance and leadership for the Foundry, for Foundry Surrey. And then we have our family engagement leadership table, which we're calling FELT for short. And they are the voices of families and caregivers across Surrey who advise and inform the development of Foundry Surrey around, for example, the site and the resources, identifying the challenges as they navigate the systems and what we could do better in Surrey, and bring that to the Foundry. We have our community leadership table, and as you see, it's very big and it continues to grow. And they are made up of positions like managers, directors, supervisors, frontline care workers, and as well as youth and family representatives from our FELT and our YELT as well. And they are advising more on the operational side of Foundry, the operational leadership, and also service and service integration.
That's awesome.
So you see that for the executive leadership table and the community, we have the Surrey School District sitting on those tables, which is great. And then we have our youth engagement leadership table, which we're calling YELT for short. And these are the voices of youth, young people across Surrey who advise and also inform on the development of Surrey on the site and resources, and sharing their perspectives in terms of how they've navigated the systems and what they feel as youth can be better for Surrey. So these tables, they meet monthly, bi-monthly, and they are continuing to grow, and we're continuing to build, and most importantly, like Jen said, ensure that the needs of the diverse community of Surrey, those needs are reflected and met at these tables.
Well, and hopefully people notice as they're watching the executive leadership table. Yeah, the Surrey School District, our senior team, Dr. Jordan Tinney, our trustees are very, very supportive, of course, of this initiative and supporting our youth, because we see the youth every single day. We have 75,000 of them here in our district, and we definitely want to be part of this community. But you can also see, I love seeing like Fraser Health, MCFD, City of Surrey, First Nations Health Authority, Divisions of Family Practice. I'm reading them out on purpose. Surrey Board of Trade, Foundry Central Office, and of course PCRS, representing nonprofits here. Like, these are large agencies, all of whom are dedicated to the singular vision of having a foundry supporting youth in Surrey. Like, that speaks volumes. And you look at the community leadership table, too small to even read off, really. But it's almost every nonprofit or public funded agency in Surrey supporting this singular vision. And that's what I love the most. Like, I'm not the king of liking meetings, as you both know, but I love the foundry meetings because just the dialogue there, and it's not just talk, it's action, right? Melissa, you lead a lot of those meetings. Like, do you see people just ready to jump out and give action? That's what I see, but I'm not sure what do you see from your end when you talk to all of these partners about Foundry?
Yeah. No, we need all hands on deck, right? Surrey is a very large and diverse community, and they've got very unique and complex challenges. And so we have all these community partners who are raring to go, and we're meeting monthly and bi-monthly to do work. And we're now starting to do our service integration work. So we're starting to have conversations, logistics conversations on and how we're actually going to bring these services and systems together and work together as community partners. So they are all very excited and very engaged, and we're continuing the important work as we move along.
Awesome. Are there more slides? Oh, there we go.
Great. Yeah, and so we just wanted to show you a timeline just to show the progress and the spans of the project so far. And a lot has been accomplished since the announcement of Foundry Surrey last summer. And so last fall, for example, we started building the executive leadership and community leadership tables. And then in the winter, we started having info sessions with community and build our youth and family leadership engagement tables. And then earlier this year, starting in the spring, summer, and now we're in the fall, we're doing a lot of community engagement, right? So we're doing a lot of community presentations, just like we are right now today. We're doing focus groups, and we have newsletters bi-monthly to update our partners and continue engaging and giving them updates on the progress of the project. We're also doing fundraising. We're doing a capital campaign fundraising, and we're starting to talk about, as I said, service integration with the executive and community leadership tables, and really talk about what those services will look like and how it's going to work with different systems.
I love it. So summer 2022, that's soon. Has COVID slowed us down at all, or are we still on that mark for the timeline? Jen,
yeah.
So yeah. Go ahead, Melissa.
We're working really hard on securing and identifying the perfect home for the Foundry. And so we're looking at summer 2022, fall 2022. And even as we continue to look for a site, everything is going to continue going and in motion. We're going to continue doing community engagement. We're going to continue informing and getting people excited about Foundry coming to Surrey. The executive and community leadership tables will continue to meet and advise and figure out how services will work. We'll continue to make connections. So a lot of things will be in motion, and we're continuing to get input and feedback in terms of what people want the site to be and what they want it to feel and what they want it to look like. So, for example, we're hearing they want the site to be in a well-lit area. They want the site to be welcoming and safe and non-judgmental. They want it to be transit accessible, as Surrey is very, very large and not everywhere is transit accessible. So we're continuing to get feedback in terms of what elements and qualities people want the Foundry Surrey to be. And we're continuing to have meetings and trying to identify perfect home for Foundry, but everything else will stay in motion.
So you talk about all these campaigns and fundraising and information sessions community. How can the community who hopefully is watching this. I see Ann Whitmore is watching from the community, and there's a question there. Hopefully, I'm not sure if it's a question or more of a comment, but having shared files and be able to work together in multiple agencies, being able to serve kids together is definitely a lot easier for families without having them to retell their story. But how can the community get involved in Foundry? Because it definitely is a community service for youth by youth, for families by families, right? How could they get involved?
Yeah, so I will talk about that in the next couple of slides.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll get there. But there are a few different ways that the community can get involved. And we would love to share some opportunities for the people who are watching to stay in the loop. And we know that people are watching are connected to youth and families in the community. So we would like to connect with them and keep them in the loop. So I will share some opportunities closer to the end. What I'm just going to do is just share a very, very important piece of work that came out of all our focus groups we've had so far and the leadership tables. And that is our vision statement for Foundry Surrey, which is young people with a voice in their health, a safe and inclusive place where young people and families find flexible, accessible, non-judgmental support and care to meet their needs. And these posters that you're seeing were illustrated to really create and capture the vision of what the Foundry will be. And you can see some of the words are capturing the values and principles that we heard very loud and clear that are important for the community, for the Foundry to have. So that's accessible and flexible, integrated and proactive, relationships, connection, dynamic and evolving, and more. And these posters were actually brought back to our youth tables, and they said, yes, we think this captures what we've envisioned for Foundry Surrey, and we are excited. So we are putting this vision statement at the forefront of our work as we continue to develop the Foundry and shape the services. So this is a big piece of work that was done earlier this year, and we think it really paints what we want to achieve. And we're very, very excited. So this is our vision statement.
Love it. I love that.
Yeah. And what I'll share right now is Jen and I were getting a lot of community inquiries from people who are looking for supports. And because this Foundry Surrey isn't technically open yet, what we're doing is sharing a lot of resources. And one of the resources that people can access now and are available now, as Jen mentioned earlier, is Foundry BC Virtual Services. So there are two ways that people can access virtual services. Is one, the BC app, the Foundry BC app that was just launched in May of 2021. And people can go on Google Play or the Apple App Store, or they can also download the desktop version of the app. And it's a really neat app where people can access drop-in virtual counseling services. They can schedule appointments. They have access to peer support navigators. They can sign up and register for group sessions. And there's also tools and resources for different topics, anywhere from anxiety, eating disorders, LGBTQS+ specific services, that kind of stuff. So it's all in one app, and it's really, really neat, and people are very excited. Another way people can access virtual services are its groups and workshops, and they have specific groups and workshops for young people and caregivers distinctive. Workshops such as the Queer Cafe, and that's for queer identifying youth who just want a place to connect and play games and work on art activities and have access to queer speakers and learn from each other. There's Body Image 101 workshops, as you can see, and there's also recovery groups. So you can visit those links to find those groups, and they have different ones every month, and they're very, very neat. And people can just sign up and have a community to connect with virtually, especially during this time during COVID. People are looking for communities and places to connect and find resources and help.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so how to get involved and stay connected. We're doing lots of community presentations, lots of community engagement. We do want to inform and connect with community. As Jen said, we know what the Foundry is, Jen and I, and we live and breathe it, but we have to confront the fact that not everyone knows what the Foundry is. Yeah. So this is our way to make connections and educate them and answer questions and really build the hype that the Foundry is coming. We're also doing focus groups with young people and families across Surrey. And those are really, really important because, again, the Foundry Surrey project is is community led, and we need to hear their voices, and we need representation, and for them to advise what the site's going to be like, what services are going to be like, what resources are needed. Focus groups, they're happening throughout the year, and we really want to, for the people who are watching, you are connected to young people and families. We want to share those opportunities with you so you can share with your networks and get them involved. And then what the sea creatures are doing below, about Foundry Surrey, get the word out there, build the hype. Jen and I, we want to scream and shout at the top of our lungs that the Foundry is coming to Surrey, but we're only 2 people. So spread the word, tell your neighbor, tell your friends, tell your book circles that you're connected with, anyone that you're connected with, to let them know that the Foundry is coming.
Well, send them this YouTube link. You can do that, right? And I love that you have this slide there. And there's a website. Is there a website as well? Because I'll put that in the comments. Is there a website for like the /Surrey? So I'll put that in the comment, like not the comments, but the descriptor, so that people can click on it directly. But I love this information. I'm only speaking now because we're actually out of time, but I do want to get, it's okay, we're not out of time, like we're on the internet, we could like talk forever, it's totally fine, but I think people will tune out after like half an hour. But really, actually, my one question to you two, and this is more for my interest, and thank you, the app does sound amazing. I've seen it, I've used it, it's great. Kids are starting to use it now as well. But the two of you, and maybe you could answer separately, if you could both give one message about mental health in Surrey to the public, what would that be? If you have the internet to talk to you right now. So Jen first, then Melissa. One message about mental health to the general public.
So what we keep hearing time and time again is the stigma, and the stigma, and understanding it also through the culture and diversity lens of Surrey, and also intergenerationally. That's the message we hear over and over from the young people, and also that the concept that getting a mental health need addressed, you don't. When you need it addressed, you can access help, and it can look many different ways. I think that there's a concept that you have to sign up and you got to go and sit and talk to someone, and sometimes that doesn't work for young people. So it's accessing it to get your needs met. You get to lead what that piece looks like, and to get the intervention when you need it, and not waiting.
Okay, and Melissa.
No, that's our message from Foundry Surrey. I think Jen said it beautifully. Mental health stigma. Mental health looks different for everybody, and they get to define what that looks like for them, and they have the right to access what that looks like for them, and it's different for everybody. And so that's what Foundry will allow and invite them to do, is when they come in, they will feel comfortable to share what that looks like, whether it's accessing services right now, or it's just wanting a place to chill and having a calm and welcoming environment. So
okay, I'll make this slide bigger just for those who want it. If you want to reach out about the Foundry, here is Jen's contact, here's Melissa's contact. I'll put the website up, but here it is on the screen as well. For those who want to know more about Foundry, please visit their website, contact those involved, fill out the community feedback survey. We definitely want the community to be involved in Foundries. And the Surrey School District, we're so proud to be partnered with both PCRS in other projects as well. Like they're a valued partner of ours, but also in this work with the Foundry. I know that as soon as it came on, our senior leadership is like, get involved. I'm like, okay, let's go, right? And it wasn't a question. It was let's go do it together, and let's be part of this initiative together to help our youth. And thank you, Cassandra, for your kind words there. And for those of you watching after, if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments or email me. I don't have my slide up here, so I wanted to give full sort of advertising to this slide, but TO_D at surreyschools.ca, TO_D at surreyschools.ca. I'll include my email in there as well in the descriptor. Please contact any of us if you have questions about Foundry, mental health, or you just need to know where some supports are for you or the youth that that are in your family. We are straight up out of time. I didn't even have time to set up my music to end the show, but I just want to thank Jen and Melissa from PCRS and from Foundry Surrey, not Foundry BC, but Foundry Surrey, for coming on. Again, thank you all who are viewing or who will view. Thank you for having lunch with us today. Daniel Toe, District Principal, Surrey Schools, signing off. See you folks in 2 weeks. Thank you, Jen and Melissa. Don't leave. I always tell people don't leave because I want to say goodbye and say thank you to you officially. But thank you for watching, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
Daniel.
everyone.